Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined by a folk singer, songwriter, poet, multi instrumentalist, and performer. Luke Faust is with us. And in addition to his work as a musical artist, he teaches dance. I want to invite everybody out there to go to movementspace.com. And Mr. Faust, thank you so much for joining us. It's a great pleasure.
Well, it's my pleasure too. It's right back at you. Thank you very much for having me on.
An honor. So I think most stories are best from the beginning. Where are you from?
Well, actually, I was born in Manhattan, and I grew up in New England, in New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Massachusetts, out on the Cape. And then I came back to New York. My family moved back when I was 14, and then where am I from? I keeps going on where I'm from. I'm from. And then I moved to New Jersey when I was around 25 or so, in 1962.
Okay. And I think it's interesting. I always pay attention when I hear the name of Hoboken, the birthplace of Frank Sinatra, one of our great American singers.
Yeah.
Can you describe Hoboken when you moved there?
Oh yeah, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget my impressions of the place. It was a really beautiful, strange, very small town right across the river from New York City. And my friend Mike Shapiro, I was living on the Lower East Side then, and I had a friend named Mike Shapiro who I met at the Art Students League. And one day out of the blue, he said, Luke, he said, you ought to go check out Hoboken. So I said, okay. So I got on the PATH train and I went over to Hoboken and I came up out of the station. I looked around and I swear all the hairs on the back of my neck stood up on end because it was like with that little train ride going 1,000 miles away from New York to the middle of the country somewhere, it's some small mill town. And the kids were playing in the streets. You know, it was like amazing. And I walked down River Street, which was right next to the waterfront, which is the working waterfront then. And I got to 2nd Street. I looked up, there was a for rent sign. I said, I'm in. So I moved there, and the rent was $35.50 a month for a 4-room cold water shotgun flat. Looked like if you've ever seen On the Waterfront.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like Eva Marie Saint's apartment. In fact, it might have been her apartment. I don't know. But there I was, and the police and the folks. There were people in town who I swear didn't know what a streetlight was for. And there are people here, lots of people. I think probably most of the people had never been to New York, had no intention going, because the whole west side of the town was industrial. So people could have a job in town, walk to work, walk home, and that was it. That's all they needed to do. And the town was full of great stuff. There was late night restaurants. There were bakeries that opened at 4 in the morning. There was a butcher that sold, you could go to the butcher and get a steak and have it made into hamburger right there. So you knew what was in it. And I could go on and on. There was a bar called the Brass Rail. I think the Brass Rail's still there. And it was run by this guy named Fritz, who everybody had a feeling was an ex-Nazi.
Mm.
And he sold these, the name slips my mind, but the beers were about this tall.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
raspberry syrup in the bottom. for $1. It was amazing. Every 6 months the police would tell me to get out of town.
Yeah. Why?
Because I was new there, and I rode a motorcycle. I was an artist. I just didn't belong,
I see.
But I would look at them and not say anything, and 6 months later, some cop would tell me the same thing. But I didn't cause any trouble. I didn't steal anything or break anything or anything. So after a while, they stopped telling me that.
So, Luke, can you tell us about the music that you grew up with, the stuff that made the biggest impression on you?
Well, I picked up the harmonica when I was 9 or 10 years old. And I didn't like rock and roll. I remember Elvis Presley was foremost in my mind. I didn't like it. Just didn't like it. And at that time we were living on the Cape, out in Wellfleet. And there was one guy in town who fancied himself a country musician. And I kind of liked that music, because it was informal, it was storytelling. When I was in my room, on Sundays, I would tune the radio to a classical music station, and I would hum along with the classical music. I would harmonize with it, hum it, and I could do that for a long, long time. So I didn't really get into folk music until we moved to New York. And my parents had a family of friends, and there were two brothers in the family, and they were both into folk music. So they turned me on to the Library of Congress folk collection. So I got a set. My parents bought me a set of those records. And my aunt, at one point, I think my 14th, 15th birthday, she sent me from Los Angeles the cheapest Stella Whitewood guitar you could imagine. And the action was already, 3/4 of an inch from the fingerboard. But I dragged that thing back into my room and I started listening to those records, and every song was a lesson. So I just started learning chords and playing along with it. I never had any real formal training in playing. So every song was a lesson, like I said. And then at some point, the mother of my two friends, she taught me a couple of chords on the banjo, 5-string banjo. So I found a hock shop and I got myself a banjo, cheap banjo, and I started teaching myself to frail. So one thing just led to another, and I was so comfortable with folk music. Rock and roll just held no attractions for me at all.
Could you put it into words what the magic, what the attraction or the allure of folk music is?
Well, every song is different. And you could play every song differently every time. I would imagine that a lot of folk musicians are self-trained. So the music, for me, being not a classical, not a highly trained musician, was really accessible, And it's the music of America, really. It's the real music of America. And every song is a story. You know, every song is a statement about something. That's the magic for me, you know.
When I was reading about you, something that came up again and again that I thought was very interesting, and it's a place in America that a lot of people have visited, and you have a particular interest, and you learned a lot of these Appalachian ballads.
Yeah.
Tell me about those.
Well, they were, you know, there were a lot of them on the Library of Congress recordings. I didn't really travel down there much in the early days at all, but there were um, a lot of banjo players, and I didn't just learn Appalachian songs, although that was maybe a big part of what I learned. I learned um, hobo songs and blues, and you know, a lot of different stuff from all over the country. Uh, I lived in Austin for a while, and I was a member of the folk society there in the early '80s. And somebody said once I had a very large repertoire, which I didn't really think about, but I guess I did. I had songs from all over the spectrum, you know. But the Appalachian Ballads, especially after I started learning banjo, five-string banjo, um, I love the modal music, the modal tunings, and just the harmonies and the strange, unearthly melodies that some of them had. You know, some of them were just amazing.
I see the guitar there, and you've mentioned the banjo. Can you tell us all of the instruments that you can play?
Well, starting with harmonica, guitar, banjo. Then I went and got myself a fiddle, and I fiddle somewhat. And then I got a mandolin because it's tuned like a fiddle. And then sometimes I would tune my guitar in an open tune and play slide guitar. And then at one point I picked up a cello. That was funny sometimes. And then the last instrument I picked up was jug. So I taught myself to play jug. Yeah, cello was humorous sometimes because I would play that. I had that when I was in Austin, and I was part of a group there. I forget the name now, but we would go down on 6th Street and play at a joint, and I would play the cello, but I'd hang it around my neck, and I'd hold the bow so it went this way, like this, and I'd be playing like that, you know. And one time there was a bunch of people there from the university Department of Music, and it just totally freaked them out to see me playing a cello like that. That was humorous. They just laughed and laughed. That was fun.
And what about the songs that you write yourself? I've had the chance to listen to a great number of them that you've recorded. Very simply done, just vocal and guitar, which
Yeah.
is a formula that works. When did you start writing songs?
Oh well, I've been sort of writing poetry for as far back as I can remember. Um, and I guess I started writing. Songs started coming to me in the late in the '60s and '70s. That's when I've written most of them. I've written a few recently. That was done with the sponsorship of Glenn Morrow at Bar None Records in Hoboken. That group of songs. I'm kind of starting another list that I would like to record, going back through my notebooks and stuff. So.
Well, one of the bonuses on this episode of the show, which I'm very happy about, we are going to be treated to a musical performance of one of your songs, and I'm hoping you can introduce the song. And we also have a performer who's going to be joining you, someone who's very close to you.
Yeah, it's my wife, Dina, and yeah, she's going to be It's going to be joining me on. She has the ukulele here.
Oh, nice.
I wrote that. Let's see. I wrote that song. The inspiration for that song is seeing plants grow out of cracks in the sidewalk and the streets, and seeing how strong they are and how they persevere, and how they never give up. You know, they just the strength of the life that breaks things apart in order to grow. It really impressed me. And then we introduced the song to the kids at the dance studio, and they love to sing the chorus. So you heard a little bit of that.
Oh, yeah.
On that recording. But they would love to sing the chorus, and they'd act it out, you know. Press on, you know.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's Dina.
Okay.
Hello, Dina.
Hi.
So
Hi.
great of you all to do this.
Well, this is an important song. This was a lesson that we would teach the children. You know, there was a whole story we would tell.
Did you want to say?
And we would talk about the perseverance and how life can be hard at times, and
Yeah. And you just want to keep moving on, you know, don't want to give up.
Yeah, so that's how we would use that as a lesson. Okay.
So here it is. We are all seeds in Earth's green garden, each with a flower hid within, and we will grow as we are able, though some may go down to wreck and ruin. Press on through rock and rubble. Press on through stone and tar. Sink your roots deep in earth and water. Raise your head high into air and fire. Not for us rose all resemble, not for us unvarying degree. Give us a junkyard, a windy hillside, some vacant lot where the bees buzz free. Press on through rock and rubble. Press on through stone and tar. Sink your roots deep in earth and water. Raise your head high into air and Don't ever think you have gone too far. Sometimes we feel we must get somewhere, but it's the growing makes us what we are. Press on through rock and rubble. Press on through stone and tar. Sink your roots deep in earth and water. Raise your head high into air and fire. Raise your head high into air and fire. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you for that wonderful performance, and a song that really, really, it's a great song. And I hope it gives people that that little edge to press on.
Yeah, so
Yes.
that's
Yes. All right. I'm going to step out of the picture. And you guys can continue.
Thank you, Dina.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, Luke, do you have any memories that you can share with us about a place that really has quite a part of the story of American music? I'm talking about the Gaslight Cafe. Do you
oh, the
have
gaslight.
memories?
Yeah, that's that was an iconic place. About everybody played there. Van Ronk, Dylan, Ramblin' Jack, even Peter, Paul, and Mary. You know, they played there. Tom Paxton. Oh, the list goes on and on. You know. And it was the basement. It was down the basement on McDougal Street. And you go down there, and the ceilings were low, like in a basement, although it was, you know, deeper than most. And the stage was small. And you know that habit that some boutique places have of snapping their fingers for the applause.
Oh, yeah.
That started in the Gaslight.
Really?
Yeah, and the reason it started there was because if people applauded, the upstairs neighbors would phone down and complain like heck. So they did it out of necessity, just snapping their fingers for applause. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, and the coffee was really good too.
Well, that counts.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell the people out there about Dave Von Ronk?
Well, he was called the mayor of McDougal Street. You know how certain people in certain situations are just natural leaders and really influential figures. Well, Dave was that around the village, and he was just this big, friendly, raucous, witty guy, you know, and a really good performance singer. He was a guitar teacher, although I never took lessons from him. And he was just, he knew everybody. He knew everybody, and he did, you know, good things for everybody. And he lived in the West Village too. He didn't live, you know, he lived there. He lived there. What can I say? What else can I say about him? He was, yeah, he was just great. He was his, from what I understand, he was a merchant seaman on the West Coast. And then he discovered that he could live much more comfortably as a folk musician and not have to go out and risk drowning and so forth and so on. So he came to New York and remade himself, reinvented himself.
There's another artist I'm hoping you can tell us about. Tell us about Jerry Rasmussen.
Oh, you know about him. Okay. Yeah, we played together for quite a few years. We never had a name to our group, our duet. But we played together, and it was kind of a natural thing. We just started picking one day, and we just clicked like that. So we just started hanging out and playing a lot. Rasmussen, I don't know all of anybody's story, but he's been to the Antarctic at some point in his early life, and he is now living in Derby, Connecticut, having found Christ, and become a really devout Christian. He's writing songs, and he's made several albums. I have one or two of them, but I don't have all of them. And at least 20 of his songs have been recorded by other artists. I couldn't tell you who, but so he's very active now, even today. He's very active. Great voice, great singer, great instrumentalist. He's really good.
Well, this is maybe a shot in the dark, but I've been listening to the recordings of this singer-songwriter. Did you ever meet or know Len Chandler?
I'm pretty sure I've met him once. I don't really recall. My memory is sketchy. It has a lot of holes in it. There's a saying that if you can remember the 60s, you weren't there. Len Chandler, yeah, he was a friend of Van Ronk's. Of course, everybody knew Van Ronk, But I can't really tell you too much about them.
Well, one singer-songwriter that a lot of people around the world know, and if anyone has ever read the book Chronicles, Volume 1,
Yeah.
you're mentioned in Bob Dylan's book Chronicles.
Yeah.
I think he said something like he said about Luke Faust, he said something like you had a similar disposition or something along those lines to him.
I have no idea what he meant by that. We've met, and we have met a few times, and I was really he came to the village and started playing. I was really impressed with the work he was doing. I thought he was amazing, the songs he wrote. But one of the memories I have of Dylan is waking him up at 4 a.m, going up to where he is sleeping in somebody else's house, and I was into, I don't know why. Sometimes I just don't know what I was thinking, but I was into knife throwing, so I was throwing knives into the woodwork, just wandering around this apartment, being destructive and throwing knives into the woodwork. And he woke up and he said, "Would you get out of here? I'm trying to sleep." And at that point, I threw in the knife and it went out the window. And I said, "Oh." Of course, it was 4 a.m, so luckily nobody was on the sidewalk. So that was one of the times that we had a very intimate interaction there, me and Dylan.
Can you tell us about the Insect Trust?
Yeah, the Insect Trust. Well, Nancy Jeffries and I are the only members of that band who are alive now, as far as I know. Um, I was living in Hoboken at that place that I rented first on 2nd Street and River. And all of a sudden, Nancy Jeffries and Bill Barr showed up from Memphis. And they said they moved into the building. There was an empty apartment. And they said they were starting a band. And they had gotten a $25,000 advance from, God, I can't remember his name. He was a producer in Memphis. And they met him at a party and talked him into, bankrolling them. But they had
Sam
no...
Phillips, was it?
Huh?
Was it Sam Phillips?
No, it wasn't Sam Phillips, no. But they had met him at a party in Memphis and talked to him, sweet-talked him into letting him into bankrolling a band. Of course, it was just Nancy and Bill at the time. So they came here, they came to New York to put on a band, get a band together. So they included me, and I started learning how to play electric guitar as a second guitar, and Bill was first guitar. And then they found Trevor Kohler, who's a horn player, a mighty horn player, and Bob Palmer, who was also at that time from Memphis, and he played all kinds of instruments, horn instruments, vocal, flute and everything else. But we didn't have a bass player or a drummer. So they started booking time at studios, and they would go and hire studio bass players and drummers. So we didn't really have a band, but we put out the Insect Trust album. We managed to put that out. Then we started doing gigs, and Trevor decided that the group ought to be integrated. So he found in Memphis, he found a couple of studio musicians who were black, and one was a drummer and one was a bass player. But they were living large in Memphis. They were doing really good there. So we had to pay, if we wanted them to come up to Hoboken, New York, we had to pay their airfare up and back. And, put them up and everything. And we were so broke, we were lending each other the same 50 cents, So that didn't really work out after a while. But we did play some fairly large venues. Who did we open for? Oh my God, my memory. I'm sorry, my memory is so
No problem.
sketchy sometimes. But finally, we let them go, and we found a couple of guys whose names I can't remember. Of course, they were from Vermont, and we did at one point. After we put out Hoboken Saturday Night, we were cruising around and doing gigs, and we did a gig in Massachusetts, Stamford, Massachusetts, I believe, and the local Hells Angels came to hear us. I remember that specifically, and they loved us. They loved what we did. And we were riding high. We were feeling so good. And we finally had a bass player and a drummer. And we got back to Hoboken, and this producer called up and dropped us. And I got on the phone. I said, come on. I said, we just got a bass player and drummer. We did this great gig in Massachusetts, you know, at least hear us. Nope, that was it. That was it. And that was kind of, everybody kind of drifted away after that.
Well, something that you're involved in now, I think it's very important. And a lot of times people, they pay attention to many things, but it is so important for us to pay attention to how we move, when we move, and how we, the way that we move. And everybody can go to movementspace.com. Tell us about what you do now.
Well, right now we're living in New Mexico. We had the movement space. We still have the website, but unfortunately, after COVID really hit, we had to close the studio down, and we haven't, you know, we were unable to restart it in any meaningful way. So there really is no physical movement space anymore. You mentioned how we move, and moving is important, and I totally agree with that. I've been studying and practicing Tai Chi for half a century now, you know. So moving is very, very important. How we do it, when we do it. So here we are in New Mexico. We sold our house. They gave us the money to be free, pay down our debts, and move. And Dina's family is here. So her mother is 93, and she's got a sister and two brothers here. So we moved here, and the cost of living is a bit cheaper here. So here we are, and we're kind of like restarting ourselves in a different way and so forth. So we've been kind of like an extended sabbatical. But we're gonna get back into playing. We were doing open mics on Zoom and so forth up in New Jersey, and we haven't been doing that lately. But I think we're gonna start, you know, getting our chops back and getting into that again. So we'll be doing open mics.
So for anybody out there who's watching or listening in, you know, there have been a few times where I felt rough. I haven't felt very good.
Yeah.
And I realized after moving around, a lot of the feelings that I had, the roughness or whatever, it went away after I got moving. And I'm hoping you can maybe tell anybody who's listening in, if they maybe are a little bit sedentary right now, what advice would you have for somebody to get the ball rolling?
Yeah. Well, if you can, go for walks.
Yeah.
If you can, even walk around a house. Don't just sit in the chair with the TV in your face for the whole day. Don't do that, because you're gonna sink into despair. You know, just like move, get your blood circulating, because, well, the mind and the body are one thing, you know. And if your body stops long enough, your mind will stop. So that's my recommendation. That's my advice.
What is the best thing about being Luke Faust?
Oh my goodness. best thing about being who I am? Well, you could ask anybody the same question. What's the best thing about being who you are? And they might have to think a long time about that. But I think the best thing about being me is watching the world and being aware and just being alive, being in this life, you know, and being able to having the friends I do have, having the friends I do have who are like a real family, you know. They're spread out, but of course my family's spread out too, and so forth and so on. But to just be part of a network of really beautiful people. Really beautiful people. And my wife Dina, she's one of them for sure.
Well, on that note, I like to close the show. No doubt there are people who are joining us who have met you at various points along the way, people who know you now. Would you say anything in closing to anybody who's joining us?
Well, you know, when I was thinking about that, I knew, you know, this was a part of your show, but when I was thinking about that, I remembered a dream I had back in February. And I have, you see this little pocket notebook here, right?
Yes.
I've been writing in these things since 1958,
Wow.
and I have them all, except one which I lost. Now, in here is a dream I had, and maybe I would like to close with a little reading of this dream.
Oh, that'd be nice.
And this was, I dreamed this in February 28th of this year. And it goes something sort of like this. I met the Dalai Lama last night. I said, your face is my face. My heart is your heart. Our breaths are one breath. And then I spoke to everyone. I said, the ocean is the greatest power in the world, but it does not know it. You have that power. Even the forces that oppose you get their strength from you. Feel that power and use it. You must know that you have it. You are the ocean. Know it. And that was the dream.
Wow. How interesting.
These things just come. You know, I can talk about things I've done because they just come to me. It's not like my ego thought them up and I, you know, invented them. You can't really invent anything. All I can do is find things. So these things come to me. They come through me.
Well, there's no pressure here. I just was thinking, you have that guitar there. Is there perhaps a tune you could serenade us with? Send us on our way with a tune.
Do you?
How about why don't you do the song that you wrote this year?
Oh yeah.
Let's see here. What's it? It's called Face to Face.
Yeah, Face to Face. I have one
Face to
called
Face
Face
is
to
good.
Face.
I could sing it with him.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. So I'm not gonna. I'll just sing. Okay, Luke.
Yeah.
And you play.
Now this was written. When was this written? March, April.
March.
March or
When we
April.
were locked into our homes.
Yeah, after we were locked into our homes and everything had to stop. There's a memento
from
another time and place. Back when it was no big deal to meet up face to face. We stood shoulder to shoulder. We passed things hand to hand. Go out of an evening and tune up with the band. Go to the beach and wallow. Go to the club and scream. Take a flight overnight. Stand in line for ice cream. But now I sit by the window and watch a jogger pass. Now and then a car rolls by, not moving very fast. The spring trees are in blossom, the robins have arrived. Squirrels run on the power lines, the sparrows organize. But for us, we've hit a wall. Humans running scared. We learn again, when you don't see nothing, don't mean there's nothing there. So when you see your cousin's face, give him and her some breathing space. We still have everything to know. And fear and greed are not the way to go.
All right. Luke, Dina, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a sheer pleasure, pure pleasure. Thank
An
you.
honor. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much. It's great to connect with you.
Yes.
Same
Thank
here.
you.
Back at you.
Thank you for finding Luke.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right, folks.
Take care.
Until next time.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
And a hug.
A hug.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Stay
Bye-bye.
safe now.
You too.